Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming at this late afternoon meeting. Today I'm going to talk about discussion control plane. I'm going to talk about how the operations will change in the next 2 years. Like whatever you are doing with software for running software, you will be doing it differently, like either yourself or by using a product. I'd just like to talk about this quote from Dario Amodei, CEO of Anthropic. But in March 2025, 8 months ago, he'd said, AI will be writing 90% of the code software developers were in charge of. So I don't know if you agree with this sentiment. I don't think that we are there now, but I think we are coming to there. If not 90%, it will be like around 50% today. And considering that where we were 2 years ago, I think this is quite a leap, and even if we are not at the 90% now, I think we will be in a very, very near future. So that actually sounds super exciting, so that now we are not doing the daunting task of writing code. But this means that you will be responsible of the alert that you got at 2 a.m. about the code that for the 90% of it, you have no context, even maybe less context on the issues. And you also will have no context about the issues that the blast radius of this issue on the other systems that are probably written by AI again. So this area requires something that is a new operational patterning for SREs and also for DevOps engineers and whoever is responsible for waking up at 2 a.m. So even today, without even any AI getting into space, the modern ops is already very siloed. So people are responsible of different parts of the systems and they don't care about the rest. They're always reactively coming up with action steps, and even if the runbooks are coming piling up, it's about the lessons learned from the other stuff. So it's the people are just looking at the dashboard, trying to query data, just acknowledging the errors, and then it is all with the old school tools. Here I'm saying that you cannot resolve tomorrow's problems with yesterday's tools. That's why we will be introducing today something we are calling as discussion control plane, where your agentic SRE teammates or any other teammates will be talking with with your systems. Before jumping in more, let me just introduce myself a little bit. So this is my almost a decade I'm working on observability. And first I started my journey with observability with serverless observability, and that's how I become a serverless hero back in 2020. And I'm actually an ex-developer who became a product manager accidentally. Now I'm becoming a developer again with the powers of AI. And I'm at my 7th AWS reInvent this year. And I'm really, really feeling the energy here about how AI changes everything about every role and how it will be changing in the next year. So I'm already full of questions about how it will be for the next year. So agenda for the rest of today is that we will talk about what I mean by teammates. So we will talk about what is assistants and then what is teammates, and then we will then talk about the challenges of running LLMs on streaming data, and also we will link it with the guardrails on data on telemetry pipelines, because you just cannot send everything to an LLM, right? And then we will talk about a cultural shift while after AI teammates, okay, AI teammates here, so what I'm going to do as a normal teammate. So let me talk about assistants versus teammates first. So AI assistants are just you see them everywhere in a website. So in every website there is now an AI teammate that's great at fetching relevant information. For SRE use cases, it's always okay, I'm asking a question, I'm curious about something. Okay, it's helping me to query my ask in PromQL or in whatever query language that you are using. It's good at retrieving data from a dashboard, but it's not you need to be following up with the discussion. You need to be telling that, okay, I got my answer, but is this actually helping me? So they are always by design passive helpers. So they are not just there to actually resolve the issue for you, but they are just there to answer your questions so that you can resolve the issue. But this is good. This is what we have been using AI for quite a lot of time, right? but like this is kind of passive. So the actual difference between a teammate and assistant is rooted from an action versus information with AI teammate versus an assistant. As I said, like the AI assistants are like response to prompts and just like gives an answer and waits for the next question, while AI teammates can proactively initiate the actions and start, how can I say, doing a research about the issue while you didn't even ask about it. And for AI assistants, its scope and the memory is all about like the questions that you are asking. It only remembers the previous questions and the previous discussions. And the AI teammates is like the multi-turn, and they are like okay, I did something, but it didn't have the solution, so I need to do something else. And from that perspective, like we can see AI assistants as helpers, while you can look at the AI teammates, your collaborators, like almost like your junior engineer that gets better and better with everything that they are learning. Again, the context awareness is like the AI teammates can know like something other than the prompts that you are giving to it. You can learn about like the how is your service map looking at, how is your dependency map is looking at, and like you can understand that like the AI teammates know your systems more than you, and then that's how actually you can trust on them, and they can act anonymously within the boundaries that you put them for it. So like you can say that, hey, I want this AI teammate to do this stuff, but not that much. Maybe you can just limit some actions, and you can say that, hey, I want certainly an approval permission for this type of things. So let's talk about a real life scenario that we have been having at Delta, that like we are anonymizing the names here, but this is like a way to start, one of the ways to start an discussion with AI teammates. Like as a human, you can just go and ask a question to it, but there might be other ways, like a monitor can trigger a discussion before, or like an external event, or a periodic task can trigger a discussion. As this time, this is like a human asking a question about, okay, I'm seeing something wrong. I'm not sure if it's an incident. I just want to check something happening. So like this is normally how you would behave on Slack, right? So you will say that, okay, yeah, something seems off, like can we just check? And then it starts here. So there is an orchestrator for this all AI teammates that knows all the AI teammates in your system. So let's say you have like 10 AI teammates, and then one is responsible for SRE, one is responsible for writing code, one is responsible for design, let's say. And like an orchestrator, in our case, it's on-call AI at Delta, like looks at all these teammates, looks at all their tools, looks at all their permissions, and looks at all their memory, and picks a teammate that is the most suited for this question. In this case, it is like the SRE, and it's giving it a prompt about like, hey, I want you to run this analysis to answer this question. And it comes with these questions, but I like to take your attention to this approve thing, because like it is asking for a permission before moving on. This is like how you actually can configure a system to act in the boundaries that you set. It's asking humans to get an approval for this, and then it starts its analysis, and it pulls the first chart it can retrieve right into the thread. And then it goes back to the orchestrator, and orchestrator says, yeah, I did some analysis. Maybe like there can be some other stuff, but like, do you want me to go for it? And then human user says, oh, I see I have some idea what can be happening now. So I'd like to ask more questions about it, and like, can I also like look at the log patterns? And then again, the orchestrator pulls up the other teammate just to look at this question. And then the other teammate is asking for another approval, and then pulls this data. But like, I really want to take your attention to here that like, normally, if you would be, this person who's trying to resolve this issue, you would switch between tabs. You would say, okay, now I need to look at patterns. Now I need to look at, you would go to some dashboards, and like, all of a sudden you will find yourself like this, like the 10 browser tabs open at the same time. But here, everything is actually in a context with just in a thread. And then, this conversation takes long, and then after some time, some other teammates came in, like the SRE reported, and then code analyzer identified the problematic commit in the latest deployment. And then it's asked for, like, do you want me to a rollback? And user requested the rollback, and it did the rollback, and then the next step would be like, okay, you can maybe continue analysis, but then you can continue for fetching for issues. So it is like the issue is resolved like with minimum human involvement, and this human doesn't need to know about like how to query a data, how to orchestrate the actions. It's just like asking questions in a naive way, and then let the AI team do their work. So just wanted to talk about one more thing that like as you can see now, like in this thread, it's all preserved. All the charts all the data that is retrieved for this purpose, all the charts that are drawn for this purpose are now preserved in this thread. You can always go back as a human user and see what actually happened. But like more importantly, your AI teammates can go back and see what happened there. But running LLMs on streaming data is more difficult than said. So like some of the telemetry data sets are kind of more suitable for running with the AI. So logs and events have stars on them now because like they are more compatible with LLMs, because by their nature they are like the words that are tokenizable by LLMs, and that like any log line is actually can mean something to an LLM. Similarly, and like events like the Kubernetes events, such events actually mean something, and like, the LLM says enough context about those. So, but like they are easy to understand for LLMs, but they are not easy to, just feed LLMs for, because like they come in the petabytes of scale, and you need to actually find a way to allow it to feed the LLM in a distilled way. Metrics and traces are also interesting. Like you cannot just like expect LLM to reveal the trends for you. So you will need to do a boring job of like, okay, there is a metric anomaly, so I need to pass it to LLM. And like similarly at traces, I will do a distributed tail sampling on traces and pass it to the LLM so that the LLM can do analysis after all. You cannot just dump all the metrics and traces to LLM, because in this case you will go bankrupt. So it is, as I say, like it's efficient data processing requires for petabytes of data, but it allows you to run the queries in English. But the scalability, of course, is not the best thing that can happen. So for that thing, actually, like I see people that tokens are getting cheaper. Like we can maybe in the future just feed everything to LLM. No matter how cheap they will be, like it will be still very expensive at scale. And like the training, like the fine-tuning models with your own metrics is infeasible for most of the data. And actually, not very spoken truth about data flowing to AI is that we are just letting everything out. So we are just like, okay, LLM, just read everything. Read my code, read my data, read my all my intellectual property. It's all yours. And it is like exposing a risk. And teams are now busy with managing the data flowing to LLM. And at this point, like we come to telemetry pipelines. So when telemetry pipelines are first out, they were being used for like, hey, like let me just compress this data, archive it in a destination, and it will just like make me, store my telemetry data sets in an S3 bucket, and then it is just like keeping the data safe. And then like we discovered a nicer ways of like seeing data, and we like did cost actually go by like another 100 times. So we could send the data to Splunk or Datadog, but like if you just ingest all this data to those, so you will also go another bankruptcy. And then that's why telemetry pipelines came into space to reduce the data, to filter the data in an intelligent way, and to mask data. And this was actually what we know as telemetry pipelines today. It is a good value, but it is not strategic. It is about like, okay, now I'm reducing the cost, but like I don't still make the data speaking to itself. And for that value, now we have LLMs. Now using telemetry pipelines which is also costing 100 times more. Using telemetry pipelines, you can just provide high value to AI, but while still keeping the data under control. And there's also, I know a lot of companies just like complying with all these security things, but like security certificates, but they are just sharing their source code and their architecture just bluntly with LLMs. And then like with telemetry pipelines, actually, you can say that, hey, I like to really mask the data that goes to LLM. I can just say that, hey, I don't want to send my, anything about like any information about my users, any information about their PII, and also about like my own code, my own service topology. I don't want to just leak the important details. And actually, when you have the masking and filtering capabilities before the data goes to a telemetry pipeline, before the data goes to a LLM, it's actually protecting not only you, but also your customers, and also your new hires that you will hire in next months, about like they will not be bluntly using it. So you may say that like now Agentic SRE is here now, like are they taking our jobs? Like what's the role of us in this new paradigm? I believe this is like more like an elevation rather than just like replacing them. So as human people, you will still be responsible about the risk management. You are still responsible of the mistakes that LLMs can make, and then LLMs can actually create the problems. So you will need to focus on how they behave. You will need to change their behavior by just changing the tools that they are using, changing the models that they are using, and changing the data that they are using. And you will need to actually be managing them. And you will also move in an upper layer in the organizational risk management perspective, and then you will focus on more complex case, and you will just like maybe shift left on the development flow about like how to respond issues before they actually push to production. And you will be the ultimate decision makers about like how LLMs behave and like how humans should be focusing on these jobs. So this brings me to the end of my presentation. So if you have any questions, we have a booth over there, Edge Delta booth. So we will be happy to talk about these questions there. Thanks a lot for listening to me today.